her only meal. She hadn't eaten in 3 days. But when she noticed the old couple sitting with no food on their table while others in the restaurant ate, she pushed her only plate of food she had struggled to buy, towards them. What happened next will break your heart and change how you see kindness forever. That's how the story begins, and before I take you deeper, let me welcome you. Hello, beautiful people. You're watching your channel name, the home of stories that touch the soul and remind us of the good still left in humanity. If you're new here, please make sure you like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because today's story will leave you in tears. And you won't want to miss more stories like this. Now let's dive in. The restaurant was buzzing that afternoon. The smell of fried chicken, fresh bread, and butter filled the air. Families laughed, forks clinked against plates, waiters weaved between tables, balancing trays of steaming food. But at the very back of the room, near the corner where sunlight barely reached, sat an old couple. Their table was empty. No drinks, no plates, nothing. They sat quietly, their hands folded together, watching others eat. No one seemed to notice them. No one seemed to care. Across the room, a young girl named Maya had just been served a small plate of food. For most customers, it was nothing special, just a plate of rice with a tiny piece of chicken. But for Maya, it was everything. She wasn't a customer, not really. She was a homeless girl. Her hair was messy, her dress torn in places, her skin smudged with dust from the streets. She had spent the entire morning begging, gathering coins that jingled faintly in her pocket, barely enough to buy this one plate of food. It was the first proper meal she had managed to afford in days. She could already feel her stomach tightening with hunger, her mouth watering at the sight of it. But then she noticed them, the old man and woman sitting in silence at the corner table. At first, she thought maybe their order hadn't come yet. But as minutes passed and waiters walked by without stopping, she realized something that made her chest ache. They had no food, not even water. Her eyes darted around the restaurant. Everyone else was eating. Children slurped soda through straws, groups laughed over large platters, plates came and went. But at that corner table, nothing. Maya looked down at her own plate. She hesitated. She thought about the coins she had begged for, the pain of empty nights on cold streets, the taste of hunger that had lived in her mouth for so long. She thought about her mother's voice from long ago, reminding her, even if we don't have much, Maya, always share, always be kind. And then she made her choice. Slowly she stood up. Her thin hands lifted the plate carefully, as though afraid it might shatter. With shaky steps, she walked across the restaurant. Some people glanced at her, frowning at the sight of the dirty homeless girl weaving through tables. But she didn't care. When she reached the couple, she placed the plate gently in front of them. The old man looked up, surprised. The woman blinked, confused. You don't have food," Maya whispered, her voice trembling. "Please, take mine." The couple stared at her, stunned. "This is your meal," the old woman said softly. "You should eat it." Maya shook her head, forcing a small smile even though her stomach growled painfully. "I'll be fine. You need it more than me." For a moment, the restaurant seemed to go quiet around them. The couple looked at her, at the dirt on her cheeks, the torn dress, the emptiness in her eyes, and realized she was giving them the only food she had. The old man swallowed hard, emotion tightening his throat. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. The old woman reached for Maya's hand, her eyes glistening. "Why would you do this, dear?" Maya looked at them with a kind of innocence that both broke and healed their hearts. "Because no one should sit hungry while others eat." Tears welled in the woman's eyes. She had lived many years, but she had never seen such selfless kindness from someone who had so little. The man finally found his voice. "Child, do you know who we are?" Maya frowned and shook her head. The woman smiled faintly through her tears. "We are not poor, my dear. We own this restaurant." Maya's eyes widened. Her lips parted, but no words came. She looked at the couple, at their simple clothes and quiet demeanor, and realized she had been wrong. They weren't neglected. They weren't forgotten. They were the owners of the very place where she had bought her plate of food. The old man leaned forward, his voice heavy with emotion. "And what you just did is something we will never forget." Maya's heart raced. She had thought she was helping the poor. She had thought she was giving away everything she had to those who had less. But instead, she had given kindness to those who had more than enough. And yet that single act of kindness was worth more than gold. The woman squeezed her hand tighter. You may think you've lost your only meal, but today, my dear, you've gained a family. Maya's eyes filled with tears, her lips trembling as she whispered, I don't understand. The man smiled, tears shining in his own eyes. You will. Took. The words hung in the air like a mystery. Maya couldn't unravel. We own this restaurant. She blinked, her mind spinning. She looked again at the couple, their modest clothes, the way they sat quietly in the corner. They didn't look like owners. Owners wore shiny watches, gave orders, barked at waiters. But this man and woman, they were nothing like that. I don't understand, Maya whispered, her voice trembling. If you own this place, why didn't you order food? Why did you just sit there? The old man leaned back slowly, his sharp eyes softening. Because we were waiting. Waiting? The old woman nodded, her smile faint but warm. Yes, dear, waiting to see if anyone in this busy room would notice us, to see if kindness still lived in people's hearts. Maya's brows furrowed. Her hands clutched at her torn dress as her heart thudded. You mean you were testing people? The old woman gave a slow nod. Not a cruel test, just a small one. You see, we've built this restaurant from nothing. For years, we've served people of all kinds. The rich, the poor, the tired, the joyful. But lately we began to wonder, do people still see each other? Or do they only see themselves? The man's gaze deepened as he studied her face. We wanted to know. So today, we sat here with no food. We told the waiters not to serve us. We watched. Maya's lips parted. Her heart tightened as she realized the truth. They chose to sit hungry in a room full of food just to see if anyone cared. And no one did, the old woman said gently. Not until you. Maya's eyes stung with tears. She turned her head, glancing at the tables around her. Families laughing, friends clinking glasses, children spilling soda. All of them so wrapped up in their own meals, their own worlds, that they hadn't even noticed an elderly couple sitting with nothing. Her chest hurt. She had given away her only food because she knew the pain of watching others eat while you had nothing. She had known that pain too many times to let someone else feel it. She lowered her gaze, embarrassed. But I thought you were poor. I thought you had nothing. That's why I gave you mine. I don't have much, but I know what it feels like. The old woman reached across the table and took Maya's hand, her touch warm against the girl's cold fingers. And that, my dear, is why your kindness is so powerful. You gave us your everything, not because of who we were, but because you couldn't bear to see someone go without. The man's voice cracked as he added, and you did it even though you had so little yourself. That's the kind of heart this world needs. Maya's throat tightened. She tried to pull her hand back, but Helen, the old woman, held it firmly. Tears rolled down her dirty cheeks as she whispered, But now I have nothing. What if I don't find food again? The woman's smile deepened. Child, kindness never leaves you with nothing. It only multiplies. The man reached into his pocket and pulled out a small key. He placed it on the table, sliding it toward Maya. She looked at it, confused. What's this? Our restaurant may have many customers, he said, but it doesn't have a soul like yours. That key is to the back storage. From today you will never go hungry again. You will eat here every day as much as you need. Maya's eyes widened. Eat here every day? The woman chuckled softly at her disbelief. Yes, dear, and not just that. You will work here if you're willing. Not as a beggar, not as an outsider, but as family. Maya's lips trembled. Her body shook as though the weight of the offer might crush her. For a whole year, she had been invisible. She had lived on scraps, cold nights, and rejection. And now these strangers, no, these restaurant owners, were offering her food, dignity, a place to belong. Her tears fell faster. She shook her head. Why me? You could choose anyone, someone clean, someone proper. Not me. I'm nothing. The old woman's grip tightened. Don't you ever say that again. You are not nothing. Today you showed us what true wealth looks like. Not money, not fancy clothes, but a heart that gives even when it has little. The man nodded firmly. That makes you richer than most people who walk through those doors. Maya sobbed quietly, covering her face with her hands. She had spent so long believing she was worthless that her life had no meaning. But here they were, telling her she was worth more than she ever knew. For a moment the restaurant faded away. The laughter, the clinking glasses, the chatter, all of it blurred into the background. All that mattered was this moment, this table, these two strangers who were no longer strangers. Helen pulled a napkin from the dispenser and gently wiped Maya's tears. "Listen to me, dear. Today you gave away your only meal. But tomorrow you will sit here with us and you will eat more than you can imagine. You will never have to choose between kindness and survival again." Maya sniffled, her voice breaking. "I don't know what to say." The man smiled faintly. "Say yes." Her heart pounded. She looked at the plate she had given away, still untouched in front of them. She looked at the key on the table. And finally she looked at them, their eyes shining with kindness, their smiles steady and full of promise. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling but firm. "Yes." The woman's eyes sparkled as she squeezed Maya's hand once more. "Good. Then tomorrow begins a new chapter of your life." And just like that, the girl who had given away her only meal without knowing who she was hardened, her wrinkled hand trembling as it reached across the table to touch the girl's torn sleeve. Her touch was warm, gentle, like a grandmother's caress. "My dear," she said softly, her voice carrying both wonder and emotion, "do you know what you've just done?" The girl looked down, embarrassed. I just thought you were hungry. Everyone else had food, but your table was empty. I only had this one plate, but I couldn't sit there and eat while you had nothing." Tears welled in the woman's eyes. The old man leaned forward, his stern expression breaking into something softer, his eyes glistening with emotion. He had seen kindness in his long years, but this was different. This wasn't charity from abundance. This was sacrifice from scarcity. "My child," the old man said, his voice thick with emotion, "you gave away the only food you had, even though you are starving yourself." He paused, swallowing hard. "Do you even know who we are?" The girl shook her head quickly, her messy hair falling into her face. "No, sir, I don't. I just thought you were poor, like me." The old woman chuckled through her tears. She exchanged a long glance with her husband before turning back to the girl. "My dear, we are not poor. In fact, this restaurant—" She gestured around at the bustling hall, at the waiters hurrying about, the families laughing, the clinking of glasses. "This restaurant belongs to us." The girl's mouth fell open. She looked from the woman to the man, confusion clouding her tired eyes. You own all this? But why were you sitting there with no food? Why did you look so hungry?" The old man smiled faintly. "Because, my dear, we were not hungry for food. We were hungry for proof that true kindness still exists in this world. We've built businesses, we've made money, but we've also seen greed, selfishness, and cruelty. So today, we came here not to eat, but to test." The girl's heart pounded in her chest. She clutched her empty stomach, her body swaying slightly from weakness. She didn't understand fully, but her instincts told her something big was happening. The old woman reached into her handbag and pulled out a small envelope. She pressed it into the girl's trembling hands. "This is for you." The girl hesitated, her dirty fingers shaking as she slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a stack of crisp dollar bills, far more money than she had ever seen in her life. Her eyes widened in disbelief. No, I can't take this." But the old man leaned closer, his voice steady and full of authority. "Yes, you can, and you must, because you've taught us something today. You reminded us that the richest people are not those who have the most, but those who give the most, even when they have nothing." The girl's tears spilled freely now, tracing clean lines down her dirt-stained cheeks. She clutched the envelope to her chest, unable to find the words. Around them, people in the restaurant had begun to notice. Conversations quieted, eyes turned, and soon the entire hall was watching. Some were crying, others smiling, but all were moved. The old woman stood up slowly and placed her arm gently around the girl's shoulders. "From today," she said softly, "you will never go hungry again. If you want, you can work here. We'll give you a place to stay, clothes to wear, food to eat. You will have a family with us." The girl gasped, her chest tightening with emotions too big to contain. She dropped to her knees right there on the restaurant floor, sobbing. "Thank you. Oh God, thank you. I don't deserve this." The old man quickly bent down, lifting her up with surprising strength for his age. "Stand up, child. Never bow to us. You stood tall when you gave away your last meal. That makes you richer than many in this world." Applause broke out across the restaurant. Strangers rose from their seats, clapping and cheering, some shouting words of encouragement. A waiter wiped away tears as he whispered, This is the kindest thing I've ever seen." The girl felt overwhelmed. Just hours ago, she was invisible. Another homeless face lost in the crowd. Now the entire room saw her. Not as dirt, not as a burden, but as a human being full of dignity and light. The old couple sat her down, insisting she eat a fresh plate of food while they watched with gentle smiles. For the first time in a long while, she ate without shame, without fear. Every bite carried hope. Every sip of water felt like a new beginning. When she was done, the old woman took her hand and whispered, "Promise me one thing, child." The girl nodded eagerly, wiping her tears. "Anything, ma'am." "Promise me that no matter how good your life becomes, you will never lose the heart that made you give today. The world needs more souls like yours." The girl squeezed her hand tightly. "I promise." The old man smiled, leaning back in his chair, a look of peace washing over his face. "Then our work here is done. Viewers watching this story, let me pause and ask you, if you were in her shoes, starving, weak, yet holding your only meal, would you have given it away to strangers who looked hungry? Tell me in the comments. Your answers might just inspire someone today. And if you believe kindness can change the world, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share this story so more hearts can be touched. Because sometimes one small act of kindness can change a life forever.